power start having in our fingertips more information, more choice. We can easily see prices, we can see specifications, we can ask other consumers, and we can decide to buy products by ourselves without any middleman or return the products back so we can take action. And we start having also a very strong voice. We don't influence anymore just 4 or 5 people around us, whether we like or we don't like a service or a product. We can shout and we can influence millions with what we tell them. So this is a major change, a major challenge for companies. So companies, if they get it, are shocked because the consumer comes close to them. In the past, only companies could go to the consumer. Now consumers go easily close to the companies and demand a dialogue, not just one-way communication. This is shocking, and it's completely out of business DNA, how we have been used to work for many, many years. So consumer power changed our business dramatically, and this will continue for the future. The other part that changes, of course, quite a lot is that there are a lot more and more competitors everywhere in the world that they try to spoil the consumers, provide them a better customer experience. And that happens not only because of globalization, so there are more and more competition that can attack local markets, but that happens as well because there is what we can call asymmetric competition. So companies out of nowhere, they come and by putting attention to just 1 or 2 key pain points and resolving those pain points extremely well, they can attack big companies that it's very, very difficult to change, to steer them, and they can erode their market share very, very easily. And of course, technology keeps changing faster than ever before. So we have to learn quickly. We have to adapt. We have to exploit the technology very, very quickly. And then next, we have to learn about the new technology and build something completely new. This speed is by far bigger than ever before. So if you put those 3 things together and we say we have augmentation of customer power, competition is augmented as well, more global, but also asymmetric coming from different industries. The change, there is an acceleration that we never faced that before, whether it is technological change, social change, many other things as well. And that creates an augmented complexity, a complexity that organizations and executives never had to face before. The consequences are dramatic. We can see in this chart about Standard & Poor's 500 largest companies. So in the past, companies, they used to stay in this in Standard & Poor's, I would say 28 to 30 years. Right now, this is down to 14 years. So we can see companies succeeding and failing by far faster than ever before. So being able to adapt to the new environment that keeps changing, it is important not only to survive, but also to grasp new opportunities that they come always in front of our eyes. So this is what happens, and this is how what changes actually in our business. Consumers become stronger, competition, of course, increases, and at the same time, we have to continuously adapt very, very fast, faster than ever before. So what exactly companies they need to change? And of course, when we talk about digital transformation, unfortunately, because it's in fashion, the word is misused. So we call digital transformation minor changes sometimes, technical changes, changing from one system to the other, going from premises to cloud, changing from one vendor to the other. For this webinar, when we talk about digital transformation, we talk about something major, big change, a real transformation for a company. And that involves as well not only technology and data, but also organization and culture. So what usually companies start changing, it is their marketing department, because they realize that something is changing from consumer and competition point of view. So they try to learn the new digital marketing tools and practices and get the skills. And this is what we call, or we can call, customer experience related digital transformation. So you learn how to use digital marketing and then how to orchestrate the different elements of digital marketing together, whether it is display or SEM or SEO and social media, and also how you blend it together with the traditional marketing tools. And of course, in this way, to try to communicate, ideally, two ways with the customer at omni-channel, online and offline. For companies to start learning those new skills, to reorganize themselves, to start getting the data and getting insights out of those data and turn the insights into actions, it takes a lot of time. It takes years sometimes to bring it to a good level. Now, companies that they feel like they need to change not only their marketing, but immediately they have to change the rest of the company, whether it is product planning and supply chain and finance, and to provide a much better customer experience, they try to change the whole company. We can call it operational excellence. So providing customer experience by having a better operational excellence. And you can imagine trying to change all the silos in a company, it is by far more complicated than just a marketing department. There are also companies that they realize that their business model is disrupted or is about to be disrupted. So they start thinking again how to change completely their role in the industry for the future, how they will create value and how they will generate business. I would say most of the times it is a kind of evolution starting from the marketing department and going to try to change the whole organization, and later on starting thinking as well about new business models that might be more relevant to the future. But of course, different companies, they might have completely different priorities and they might have to start from different side of this triangle. So those are the typical areas where we try to transform organizations so that they can succeed in the future. Now, why do we hear all the time, more and more? Sometimes we hear that just 80% of digital transformation projects are stalled or they fail. What is going on? Why it's so difficult to transform organizations? I will try to bring up, based on my experience that I can see in every sector, whether it is insurance or agricultural sector or anywhere else, health sector, consumer, retail, everywhere, I can see exactly the same problems. So what are the challenges that I see? Number one, when you want to transform the company, you want to go from A to B. So assessing the situation where you are, it's very, very important before you decide where you want to go and how. So talking about that, the diagnosis and how you interpret the symptoms, it's very, very important, because wrong diagnosis will lead to wrong therapy. And that might create more issues rather than to cure pains, actually, that you can see in the organization. So having an accurate diagnosis and assessment to provide the correct therapy, it's one of the big, big challenges. And it is a big challenge because sometimes it's about having people in the organization that they might have, of course, different perspectives. You know, the numbers can tell different stories. And that's natural. And with the right dialogue, if there is transparency and if there are good intentions, you can come up with what is the right diagnosis so that you can decide what to do next. But, you know, in large organizations, even in small organizations, another problem that we face is the hidden agendas inside and the political problems. And I would say most of the organizations that happens because it's all about people. It's not about numbers. It's about people. It is not about numbers. It's very, very important. So in that case, if you have numbers that can tell different stories and you have as well hidden agenda, you might make an assessment which is completely wrong about what the company needs to do next, just to please few people that they have the power at a certain time to do something. So assessing the situation is very, very important. The next thing where we have a major issue, it is companies normally would like to do everything, right? To increase their market share, to launch products and improve profitability and expand internationally and improve the ROI and streamline the operations, improve the transformation. That's what we see in all the annual reports of the companies. It's a real wish list. And many companies, even serious and successful companies, I have the feeling that they mix up the wish with the strategy. Having a target, having an objective, having a wish does not mean that you have a strategy, how you arrive over there. And many times we get into this pseudo strategy or wish list fallacy. And we hear many, many times that the strategy was good, but execution was bad. And anybody who will look in a dictionary will see that strategy is how you will execute to achieve your goals. So of course, if you have an unrealistic strategy, you will fail. And the most important thing about strategy, the first thing that you have to decide, it is what you are ready to sacrifice, what you will not do, so that you have enough resources to focus them on what matters to achieve your objective and execute. If you don't have the right resources and focus them to achieve something, it will stay as a wish. And we can see many, many times that spreading resources thin across many, many fronts is the best practice for failure. So the same applies for digital transformation. If you start a digital transformation without having the right diagnosis, without having the right resources, and without focusing on executing, you will not achieve it. So having a realistic strategy for your digital transformation and have the right resources to execute the bigger or smaller scope that you might decide you want to transform, it is another big challenge that we face in most of the organizations. Another major challenge that we face, it is senior management.
Dimitris, sorry to interrupt. This is Deborah. I just wanted to let you know that a couple of people, not many, but a couple of people seem to be having sound trouble hearing you. And I wanted to just make sure that we could try and correct that if possible. I hear it fine, and I think a lot of other people hear it fine, but there are a few who are not getting a very clear sound channel.
I see. I will try, actually this time I cannot do a lot of things. I will try to get another microphone probably for next time. Yeah,
but everyone, while I've got the floor, so to speak, I do encourage you. I understand that some people are not hearing as well as they might like to, but this content is so incredibly important and valuable that I really encourage you to try and focus on the content and less on the sound quality, because you'll really get the most out of it that way.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Dimitris.
And Deborah, as I can see already, you sound very well. So I have to get your advice about your microphone in that case. Thank you. Thank you. I'll keep the microphone here in case that helps. Okay. All right. So another challenge that we face is, very well, when we talk about digital transformation, you have a sponsor, right? You have an inspired and inspiring executive that decides to change something. It can be the CEO of the company, maybe in a medium-sized or small-sized company, but normally it can be the vice president or president of a department or division when we talk about a large company. So this person is very, very important. And you can probably assume that a CEO or president, they have the credibility. However, that's not the case. Many of the CEOs and the presidents, they might have issues about performance before this transformation starts. And maybe they might have faced frequent failures of different programs. If that happens, their peers and the organization, instead of supporting them, they start undermining the project. So this is something very, very important, the credibility of the sponsor. And especially in companies, in large companies, where you can see many different directions, executives going left and right, with many different projects and programs, conflicting projects and programs. They change their mind, the company goes from left to right every few years. If you face that, do you think anybody will take seriously the next transformational project? They will not. So credibility of executives and senior management is very, very important to succeed for digital transformation. Of course, if you are an employee in a company or you are a consultant, advisor, something, you cannot address it very openly, right? You cannot tell your boss whether he or she has the credibility. But if you have a chance, and sometimes you have the chance, to decrease the scope so that you can focus on the low-hanging fruits to build some credibility, some positive momentum, and take the next steps instead of going for a large scope of a program that by the time you start, probably the sponsor is not there or the support is not there, it is better. So try to assess the situation. And if you have a chance to avoid doing something big, if your sponsor is weak, please do it. Another part which is major challenge as well, it is, when we run a digital transformation, a serious digital transformation, that means a reorganization as well. And of course, we prepare town halls and workshops and newsletters and videos and many other things. And we believe that we have all the right arguments to convince people. However, when reorganization happens, most of the time you have winners and losers. So it is very, very personal. It changes people's lives. And who cares about the numbers? People care about themselves. So it's about me. It's about my career. Do I lose my power? Do I lose my job? I'm getting promoted or I'm getting demoted? How about my peers? So all those me feelings, sometimes we underestimate them. And although it sounds very difficult to be able to address everybody one by one, it's very, very important to bring to the surface what's going on, at least for the key people. And sometimes the key people could be at high rank or at any of the ranks in the organization. Because people are smart. When you have a town hall and they feel like they have a chance to turn around the whole project to their favor, they will fight. If they don't feel like they have the power to do that, they will undermine the project. So sooner or later, you might start having a lot of enemies, and most of them, they will be hidden. Being able to assess the situation correctly, it is very important so that you can succeed in digital transformation. So bring up emotions and thoughts that sometimes are not revealed. How you do that? You know, you need excellent change managers. You need people that people can trust and they can have good conversations, and then you can see how you can tackle the different issues. Not easy, but very, very important. If you don't address this, you will fail. Another challenge that everybody faces, and before I go to the challenge, I will tell you what I see. Most of the conferences that I can see in books, I have the feeling that digital transformation looks like we will execute in a laboratory, that all the elements are under control. The reality, however, it is that we execute in a fast-changing world, in a world that everything in terms of company, the business as usual keeps changing. And many times, while the company expects people to put enough effort and attention to the program for transformation, still prioritizes the results of today. And when there is conflict between the digital transformation and the results of today, guess what? Most of the time, the results of today have a priority. So running a digital transformation, you need sometimes to be ruthless about pushing back for different kinds of pressures and try to make the program successful, but also sometimes to be flexible because it's true, the world may be changing and we need to adapt. This is especially important because people keep changing as well. So if you have a look here, it looks like in the most successful companies probably we have in the world, people hardly stay more than 2 years. But even in less successful companies, people usually do not stay more than 3 years. So you run a digital transformation program that takes usually 2 to 3 years. It's very likely that the team that starts is not the same team that probably will finish the program at the end of the third year. So how do you manage to have everybody aligned, enthusiastic, to have consistency, to have continuity, so that you can achieve the result at the end? It's extremely complicated because key people of the company will change, maybe the sponsor will change, key executives will change, many people of the program team will change as well. And anybody who is still there to achieve that needs to manage all this complexity to have a success. So very few companies have a good governance that they can manage to bring large digital transformation programs that probably they need, if it is at the global level, more than 3 years to a positive result at the end. Exactly because of all the previous reasons, it's very, very important also to execute fast. It's a small window of opportunity. So if you don't execute fast, maybe you will not do anything. And this is a paradox because to execute well, you need a very good planning. So you want to build the business case, to go through the approval process, to build the team, to make the plan, to run the RFP, to start executing, maybe at the end to start having the benefit realization, to check whether it is according to the business case. You need time. For very large programs, you might need more than 6 months. You might need even 12 months to prepare, to have everything ready to start. But most of the time, you don't have the time. So you have to make it fast. And here it comes the next challenge, that it could help to address all the previous ones, but this is a very big challenge as well. So you can imagine that people that they run a serious digital transformation should be the best. So they have to have a holistic understanding about what is going on in the business, ideally in the market environment as well. They have to enjoy the trust and respect of the different stakeholders so that they can follow what they need to achieve for the digital transformation. Of course, they need to be digital experts, but also result-oriented, not just PowerPoint presentations, right? And they should have common sense to decide when they have to stay adamant about following the program, and sometimes when they should be flexible. They should be very capable, not just to be smart, but also to have a very strong emotional intelligence, EQ and IQ. They should also be humble leaders because you are there not for your ego. Is there to manage the ego of all the other stakeholders and the rest of the team. Because unless you do that, also it's very difficult to bring them on board and achieve something. And you need to be passionate. And passionate is not about having just passionate speeches, but to run for that, maybe to be able to sacrifice part of your time maybe with your family, your personal time, in order to achieve what you need to achieve. So you need people that they are hardworking, they are ready to work 24/7 for many months. And you need also people that they have very strong stomach to manage all this complexity. So those people, of course, when they exist, they take a big risk, exactly because digital transformation is always very, very difficult. In case it fails, they might get as well the blame that it was them that they failed. But you have to take risks in life, right? So you can imagine those people are not available. They exist sometimes in organizations. You can find those unique talents, but usually the organization wants them to run the operation today, to bring results today, not to bring a result of transformation for the future. So the reality is you have to work with whoever is available. So we talked about 7 challenges so far. I could add maybe another 3 or 4 at least. But I think that's enough to make sure that we are all aligned how difficult it is to run a major digital transformation. And probably there are not easy solutions for each of them, but it is all about people. If you have the right team on board, they will find the way to uh, to overcome all those different obstacles. And of course, this is not an excuse not to do digital transformation, because otherwise you will not survive for sure. You have to try. And some people, when the digital transformation finishes or it's about to finish, although real digital transformation is a journey that should continue for years, they see the situation like half, the glass is half full or half empty. So you need to try to transform companies, even if you fail once or twice. And this is a process that all companies have to go through. And probably in 20 or 30 years, they will be in much better shape to, to, to embed new kind of skills, like being able to continuously adapt and learn. Now, when we run a digital transformation, of course, we decide about the blueprint, where we want to go. And this blueprint, it could be about systems, processes that we need to change, technology, data, but also organization and culture. And I would say the principles are well known. Number one is design from scratch, like your company was not existing at all. And think like an outsider, like an observer, like a consultant, trying to avoid as much as possible the personal agendas and the politics. I know it's not possible, but try to avoid it as much as possible so that you have a blueprint that really can help the company and not one or two people that they can influence this program in the company. And I would say that someday you will have in 1 year, in 2 years, in 3 years, depending how complex the program and the project it is, you will have the new setup in terms of technology, data, organization, processes, etc. But somebody has to use it, to use this new setup. And the success depends how we operationalize, how we use it. And the operationalization depends on the people who will use the new setup. And I would say what we see most of the times, it is that the culture operationalizes the digital transformation, and it is critical to succeed. If you don't have the right culture, it's a waste of time. No matter what you do, you might have new technology, you might organize your data much better, maybe you might decide new processes, maybe you even can decide about new organization, more agile and more flat for the future. But if you have the wrong culture, not the new culture that is adapted to the new environment, then you fail. And you can see a lot of programs that they achieve this part. So you can see new processes in place, whether they are followed or not, that's a different thing. Technology and data and a new organization, but still they struggle to bring a return on investment. Why? We need a cultural change. And because this is very soft, we don't put a lot of attention in this. Normally, operationalization, for many of us, it is templates and automation and many other things. But if we don't put attention in the cultural change, we don't achieve anything. And when we talk about cultural change, the story is very, very simple. To succeed, you need to satisfy customers. To satisfy customers, we need to collaborate all together, not to work like different silos going in different directions. And also because everything keeps changing, we also have to learn how to change all the time, much faster than ever before. I would say very, very simple. It's not rocket science. Probably it is also logical to everybody. why it is so difficult to achieve that. Let's have a look at the most important part, customer focus. You know, in business, to succeed, you need two things. Or business in general, it's about two things. Number one is promise. You promise somebody that you can do something, right? And eventually you have to deliver the promise. Now, if you promise and somebody believes you and pays you, you have a customer. If you have one customer, you have business. If you don't have a customer, you don't have business. So having customer is critical for businesses, and it is a sign of success. So everybody in business, what we try to achieve is this simple or maybe more complicated sometimes funnel where we try to attract, engage, and convert customers, convert consumers into customers. And that's again called consumers anybody, whether it is B2C or B2B. This is the ultimate objective of everybody. So over the years, we started feeling like we are the predators and the customer is the prey. And this is very deep in our DNA. So from financial point of view, the transaction is the most important moment to show success for companies. Any effort before the transaction that we can call pre-sales effort is good. We should invest more. We have to do more because this is the only way to sell more. However, any effort after the transaction, it's usually considered bad because with the transaction, we made some sales, we got some gross margin, we got some profit. After sales effort, it should be much more avoided, cost cutting, call avoidance, etc. So in this transaction-focused mentality that we all have since many, many years, we see consumer as an opportunity to get a profit. And then once the consumer becomes a customer, the customer becomes a cost. So the customer is something bad, the consumer is something good before it becomes a customer. So with this mentality, what we call customer experience, most of the time, for most of the companies, it is the pre-sales effort. How we can promise better to customers to have more sales. Because that will bring companies satisfaction. And this is when we can really celebrate, we can give bonuses about sales, we can celebrate the sales of the company. And we forget sometimes that the real customer experience starts after somebody buys the service or the product. And we don't put so much attention in this second part. So where we focus, it's much more on company satisfaction, which is the sales and the profit, rather than after sales, which is the customer satisfaction. So based on this mentality, how do we interact with customers when they come, for example, in our website? We have a chatbot, right? Hello, can we help you? I don't care whether you came first time in my website or third time in my website, you better buy from me. Then how about you give me your email, I will give you something back. And in this way, I can send you personalized emails for the rest of your life. And also, if you forgot something in your cart, I will come back to remind you a few times. Sometimes it is valuable and sometimes it is annoying. And also, we know you are a cookie, right? You are everywhere, somewhere in social media, and we can follow you telling you how great we are. And also, exactly because of this, in case you want to buy, to book a hotel or you want to buy a mattress, you will see advertisement about hotels and mattresses for the rest of your life. We don't care if you already booked the hotel. We don't care if you bought already the mattress. You will see all this personalized advertisement for the rest of your life. So the digital tools, of course, help us to intensify a personalized hunting this time. And I would say there's probably nothing wrong with the tools. It is much more the mindset, the mentality. So anything which is wrong practice in retail, because you don't expect salespeople to run after customers once they arrive in a store and try to sell to them or get their email or get their telephone number. We do it in digital, and we think it is smart. So I'm sorry if I exaggerate, but I hope you understand that culture is very, very important. And relevant to this, you will see here that also after sales, we try to hide. We created those many, many pages of frequently asked questions, and then we tell people to go and to look to them, and we hide somewhere maybe our telephone number. Most of the websites probably will never show an email. And eventually, if somebody gives us a call, then our lines are busy. We will be with you as soon as we can. So practically we don't commit on anything. I don't care. You're a customer. You're not a consumer. You bought from me. That's your problem now. So unfortunately, many companies do not realize that they think and they feel like that. And they try to hide from their customers after customers buy, because of course there is a cost about serving customers. And then the question is, why don't you have chatbots after sales? Good news, I can see already companies that they start doing that. They start having chatbots after sales and hopefully providing a better experience over there. So digital, having a transaction-focused culture means worse customer experience, not a better customer experience. And why that happens? Let's go back a few years ago when there was no digital. The only way you could address the mass market, it was through the paid media, campaigns. One way. You can tell them you are the best, you have the best products, many times, millions of times, so that consumers eventually they believe it and they buy from you. And they buy from your retail, indirect retail stores. Most of the time you don't know about the consumer unless you run a survey or research. You don't care. As far as they buy, that's fine. So the focus of marketeers for so many years, it's all about paid media. We had, of course, in the past our own shops sometimes, some of the companies and repair centers, and also consumers. They could talk to people that they knew. This is what we call the word of mouth influence, but that was not important. Paid media had always a dominant role for branding and for selling. So one-way communication is what marketing was about for years. Now, if we look in the new digital era, of course, paid is still there and very, very dominant. And social channels and web, they start replacing print or TV. So we still focus over there. But what we forget is social channels is not just about telling people how great you are. It is also by listening what they tell others and what they tell you as well about their experience. And many, many times reading a story about a customer using a product, it is by far more engaging rather than reading the story that company talks about their own products. Plus, another thing which is very important is exactly because of digital, companies start having this web ecosystem that enables a kind of dialogue, two-way communication directly with consumers, and consumers, they expect that. So website, something very old, maybe not the most exciting necessarily word in digital. At the end, it is the destination where any traffic, whether it is from paid or social media, will arrive. And this is where you can tell a great story or a boring story about your products and your services. And the website is practically your best sales agent or after sales support agent that can take care about customers, providing a good or bad customer experience 24 by 7, 365 days per year. So it also reveals the brand's digital personality. It can be inspiring, can be boring, can be fast, it can be slow. It's very, very important. This is what normally consumers see as the face of the brand. So what's important here is that our own media, and many times this is not, of course, only the call centers and the repair centers, the direct retail, but it is also our digital own media, providing this kind of two-way communication with customers. They become by far more important to engage or disengage customers rather than the paid media. So the media power starts moving from own to from paid to own and earned. And this is really underestimated and not very well understood by many, many people. And that's why we see those bad examples that I shared with you earlier on based on this culture. So we need to find a better balance towards a customer satisfaction focused culture and a more two-way communication. Hunting instinct is not bad, but we cannot succeed having only a hunting instinct. We need to become much more customer-centric. So you can easily assess whether your organization is transaction-focused or not, just with some questions that I have with you, like what your executives talk about every day at C-level. Is it about customer satisfaction, or it's about sales, acquisitions, and other things? What do you mean with customer experience? How you measure it? How you measure the customer lifetime value? Have you implemented hard KPIs about customer satisfaction at executive level? So I have a lot of questions here that maybe you can have a look at your convenience later on after this webinar and check whether you feel like you are a transaction-focused company or a customer satisfaction focused company. So my highlights, talking about culture and customer, it is number one, digital. If it is combined with customer satisfaction focused culture, it will provide a better customer experience. If not, it will provide a by far worse customer experience. Number two, let's try to move towards a two-way communication with consumers. We have now the tools to be able to listen and respond back to consumers at personalized level. Website is a critical touch point, and it can increase customer experience. It can improve actually customer experience and improve the two-way communication with them. After sales customer experience is really critical for customer satisfaction. This is where we have to put more and more we should allocate resources. And customer satisfaction becomes every day more important and becomes a real powerful media content and critical to succeed. Let's move quickly to the next part, which is collaboration. Companies, if they don't work together, it's impossible to provide a good customer satisfaction. And we don't want to spend a lot of time why we need better alignment and better collaboration. Everybody knows that when two people work together, they can achieve work for 3 or 4 or 5 people. On the contrary, if they don't collaborate, they become obstacle to each other, and at the end of the day, they achieve nothing, or they achieve less than nothing. So what is important to improve collaboration? It can be a very long list, but I would like to focus on two elements more only. Number one, it's about trust. Do you trust your peers? Do you trust your peer that if you go to a life-threatening mission, you would like to have this peer with you to help you in case you are in danger, or they might kill you? Trust is very, very important in an organization, because if you feel like people do not have a hidden agenda, when you debate about budget and about direction, and everybody simply might have different perspective about what is good and what is bad about the company, then those debates and those discussions are fruitful. They can bring better results. Now, what is needed between people so that you can nurture this kind of trust, I think probably those values are universal. We know at the same time that in organizations, you don't have angels, or you don't have only angels. So leaders need to spend a big part of their time to nurture this trust, so that the head of sales and the head of marketing and the head of whatever finance, they work together rather than against each other. They have to trust each other that there is no bad intentions. The other element which is very important is respect. And I'm not talking about respect being polite to each other. It is respect because you really admire somebody of being an excellent professional. So imagine having the sales director and the marketing director. Usually they both, let's say there is a lot of conflict many times in an organization. And the sales director believes that marketing director, no matter what his or her perspective is one of the best professionals you can find in marketing in the market. So it is a great professional, simply he or she might have a different perspective. And vice versa. The marketing director believes the same about the sales director. In that case, the debate about where you allocate resources and how do you run, the commercial strategy and commercial policy, it can be a very good debate and can bring very good results. Again, what makes people to respect each other, I would say it's quite universal across countries. And again, the role of leader is to nurture this trust and respect between peers, because otherwise they will simply do not collaborate. They might pretend in best case that they will, but they will not collaborate. Some hints how to nurture trust and respect. One thing is to make sure that the team, at least at high level, but ideally across all the ranks in the organization, regularly go back and have a look about the purpose, the vision, the values of the company, and whether all that is authentic or it is just you talk without quoting the talk, right? The other part, it's clarity. You have to clarify roles and responsibilities between departments and between people. You have to clarify the service level agreement between departments internally, and of course with external partners as well. need to have conflict for things that you can clarify upfront, and you can avoid actually having toxicity in the organization for very simple things, like clarifying roles and responsibilities. Of course, coaching people is very, very important. And this is how you have a chance to listen, but also to nurture this trust and respect among people in the organization. If you want, of course, to develop a mutual understanding and empathy between different peers, the best way is job rotation. Of course, I know this is very, very difficult to achieve. Another good alternative to job rotation is to let them present in front of a big audience, I mean the rest of the team, uh, each other's roles, challenges, achievements, and stories. So imagine having the head of finance talking about the challenges of the marketing department, what they do, what they achieve, and what is their role. And say that to believe about that. So you can imagine how engaging this is for the whole organization. And then you have maybe the marketing director or the sales director talking about the finance department. Not very easy, but not very difficult either. It works very well. I've seen it across many organizations, and that's one way of trying to put actually the different peers to get better aligned that look like at least they trust and respect each other. And by doing that, probably eventually trusting and respecting each other because they understand each other's challenges and issues. Peer grading, it's another way, and even peer cross-coaching when you have this trust and respect. So this is very important. I don't know whether you can call it project or program, but if you don't have collaboration, and if people do not really work for customer satisfaction, any digital transformation you will do, new systems, data, whatever, will bring sometimes worse results rather than better results. And how about change? As we said earlier, we have to be agile. We have to learn. We have to adapt. We have to exploit the technology, but also ourselves. We have to start thinking and acting in different way than before. And I have a very long list for you here that today, unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go through this. However, I would like to focus on the last one. In all this complexity that we face, by far more than 20 years ago, how do we learn to think and act smarter and faster? Acting. It's very, very important, especially versus the consumers, because the data practically is the interaction of consumers with us most of the time. And you can have dialogue only when you respond. So if you collect data and you do nothing, it's a waste of time. So what we see right now in the organization, talking about data, is that we work for data. Data do not work for us. There is a big gap between data and actions. Why that happens? I would say the theory, it's quite simple. We get data, we make some analysis, we eventually have a holistic understanding, we have some insights, and we take action. However, we now have billions of data, even small company, and we start creating a lot of reports. But the reality you can see in most of the organizations is managers or many other people, they have no time to read the reports and analyze and reflect and decide. And then if they decide they want to do something, then again, the organization is so complex. It takes so time to coordinate action, prioritize and delegate it. monitor that most of the companies, what they prefer to do is to activate, do new things, but never go back to see how well they perform and keep optimizing the organization. Because it's complex. Because humans are not capable of managing the complexity of today. So we don't see actions and we don't see the ROI of data. And this is obvious right now. So how we manage that? The last few years, we created very easily a lot of dashboards. And although dashboards can be very valuable sometimes because it gives you at high level what is going on, for many people, if they see the dashboard every week or every day or every month, depending where the dashboard is, they cannot really understand what they should do based on this dashboard. And the next is analyzing the data. It's really analysis paralysis without taking any action. And some of them, they really, let's say, admit that it's boring after some time. So our analytics are report-driven, is how we can create a report, believing that after you create a good report, people will take action, which is an illusion. So you can really deactivate organizations today by creating a lot of dashboards and a lot of reports. Just have a look at your organization, whether you really take action after people see a dashboard regularly or a report. And dashboards, sometimes the problem with dashboards is they show average numbers. So you might see maybe that if you have e-commerce business, that your sales are 1% up. And maybe that does not suggest to take any action. However, what you might miss seeing going farther down, it is that there is a blind spot that for some of the products, somewhere in some of the countries, you have a major issue and you have maybe 60% decrease of sales. And that can be because you have broken links and maybe your website over there for some reason is very, very slow. Maybe you have wrong prices or you don't have competitive prices, or people, they look to find your product and they cannot find it for many, many, many reasons. You don't see those blind spots, and there are many. So how do you bring together data and action? Action-driven analytics. We need analytics that help you to take action. The role of those analytics is not to create a report, is to take action. And imagine right now, before I go to this, a company, a large company, like many of those multinationals, that has a website across 180 countries and run it with many languages. And they sell 12,000 products, and they have more than 140,000 URLs. And they have 200 campaigns across the 200 countries per month, right? And of course, they have a lot of metrics, global metrics, and global KPIs. And then this company can have 700 or 800 digital experts and many global digital agencies that they run social media, content, etc. And many local digital agencies and IS regional teams and outsourcing teams. How can you find every day what goes wrong? And how do you coordinate people to fix it? So there are solutions already in the market. Simply, I don't see people still using them. So you can have, for example, auto-diagnostics. So you can identify anomalies that are happening across billions of data and run a root cause analysis and with correlation between different things. You can find what is probably the problem. And then you don't leave it there. You don't just report it. You send it to the right people to prioritize and delegate. And of course, because it's a ticketing system, you can check whether people took action, when, and how. Now, the most important thing out of this is there are companies already that provide that. You can have an AI that learns everything. You learn how you prioritize and delegate, that if you feel comfortable with the AI tomorrow, they don't just propose to you what is priority and where they should send a message, but they can do it automatically. And it can be transparent. You can see what happens behind the scenes. And by automating this prioritization, delegation, recommendation, how to fix it, because it learns how you fix normally the issues, it can help you to take away a lot of boring, I would say, work that nobody is doing, and helps you to improve performance of the company and at the same time provide a better experience for the consumers. To my surprise, hardly 1 or 2% of the companies, usually the digitally born companies, they use such kind of systems, but the non-digitally born, they just collect data. So instead of having people getting bored or getting confused with the different dashboards, how about changing the organization's metabolism from dashboards, couch potatoes, to become passive, to become active customer experience warriors? So I think, just to recap, we discussed about why we need to transform companies and what exactly we need to transform. What are the challenges? Many, many challenges. But this is not a good excuse to avoid transforming companies, and how to operationalize so that you can succeed. So if you don't tackle the culture in the company, it's a waste of money, anything else that you can do. You can have new systems, you can have new processes, and even you can have a new organization, but you will not have return on investment. So starting with executives, we have first of all to make sure that they understand what means customer satisfaction. It's not just about pushing messages and trying to sell our products and services. Everybody understands that unless a company collaborates well, you cannot succeed. And this is more important than ever before today, exactly because there is more competition and consumers are more demanding. And yeah, we have to learn to change ourselves all the time, faster and faster, because that's the only way we can succeed. So operationalizing the digital transformation, it goes through cultural change. And as you understand, with all those different challenges that we face when we run a customer digital transformation, it's a kind of mix between science and art. You have to find the right balance of different elements so that you can see results and you can start having success. And very, very important, what we try to achieve with digital transformation is not one of achieving something. It is embedding in the organization cultural elements like customer satisfaction, collaboration, and the ability to keep changing all the time to be more relevant. It is really a journey. So those are my perspectives based on my 8 to 10 years experience in digital transformation and many other years of non-digital transformation in the past. So I'm very happy actually to have a look at your Q&A for the next few minutes. And I think we already start having some questions. And also, by the way, yes, I can see from program support team, please don't forget also to give us your feedback about the session. So you can see the first question, having an experimental mindset is one of the biggest challenges. How do we introduce it to an organization? Yes, it is a big challenge, and this is exactly one of the many sentences that I had about how we change and how we should change. It depends on leadership. So if you are risk averse, it's very difficult to experiment, especially making major experiments. Of course, digital can help you make small experiments, A/B testing. It's very easy and it's not harmful, right? Digital can help you, whether it is MVP or many different concepts, to try to experiment without taking high risks for the company. So it's much easier today rather than in the past, but it is still about culture. If the culture is about finger pointing who failed, and instead of celebrating that somebody took an initiative, and maybe out of this initiative, there might be a failure and something we learned out of this. If this is the culture of the company, then I think the experimental mindset can work very well. If this is not the case, then yeah, I agree. It's pretty challenging. One more question, finding our own answers is another mindset that is important to embrace. Any thoughts on this? Yes, I agree. We have to hear about many different principles, and we have to decide and find our own answers, if I understand well your question. Another question, if the organization has a high turnover of key staff and stakeholders, how to make sure we have the right people, especially with holistic understanding and trust and respect. All these aspects take time to be achieved, and if people rotate, we will lose it. I agree with you. This is a big challenge we face nowadays comparing to maybe 20 years ago when we didn't have tourist executives and tourist employees. That I remember one of my colleagues in HR in a big organization in San Francisco, she told me that by the time she finishes the induction for people, she starts preparing the farewell. So that's the reality of sometimes the technology companies or successful companies that we have seen earlier. There's no easy answer. Of course, every organization is different. And by looking to the organization, we can find solutions. They might not be perfect, but this is what we tackle every day. Many of the large organizations, they have this high turnover, and it's very difficult to keep a consistency. To be honest, sometimes, and this is not selling consultancy, it might be easier to have a consultant next to you and stay there to help the organization while people keep changing very, very fast, like a kind of psychiatrist or psychologist, rather than believing that the organization can achieve that. It happens sometimes, and that I have no intention about selling services here, but this might be a solution. What's your perspective on platform economy? How does that play in the overview you provided? I would say the challenges are exactly the same. So think about a company that wants to transform itself to have a business model based on a platform, right? Unless you are customer focused, unless you collaborate together in this organization, and especially with your stakeholders and your customers in platform, right? Where you need producers and consumers. If you don't take care about them, if you don't provide a real good value proposition, you will not succeed. It's not the technology issue most of the times. It's about culture. And of course, platforms will keep evolving as well. So you have to keep changing all the time to remain relevant. So I would say it's exactly the same principles. How to reach sustainability. Depending what we talk with sustainability, it's a very large subject. Probably we need more time. I'm afraid I cannot give a quick answer about that, but we can exchange messages through Canvas if you would like to. What is a typical time frame for digital culture transformation? I would say I can never say that. Usually more than a year. Sometimes can take more than 5 years. But as with digital culture transformation, sorry, my mistake. To change the culture, if people are around, of course, and they don't change very, very often, can take more than 5 years. It depends on leadership. If you have the right leaders on board, it can be much faster. It can be just 2 years. But if you don't have the right leaders in the organization, it can take easily 4 to 5 years to make the change. If you can change the culture of the leaders, because if you cannot change the culture of the leaders, you cannot achieve anything in the organization. So we have to start with the top. Could you please list some software companies that do offer an action-oriented AI solution? Yeah, there are some companies. I know one that is doing that actually excellent called Bear Square. Happy actually to share some more information and other companies. I think Anodot as well is doing that. I'm not selling companies, of course, but I'm very happy to share with any of you 2 or 3 companies that they provide action-driven analytics. You mentioned earlier about ROI. What is your view on how to best review the ROI from digital perspective? It depends what is the scope, what you want to achieve. Sometimes it is savings. The ROI could be savings. Sometimes it is increasing customer satisfaction in the different touch points that you try to change. And sometimes it's, of course, sales and profit, because depending what you try to transform, you can have also much more hard ROI, easier to achieve, easier to understand. How to bring customer relevance into digital transformation culture. Yeah, this is what I was saying earlier. It needs effort, and I would say, again, the most important thing is to make sure that executives believe in this, because if executives believe in this, if they talk about that every day, if they demand the company to take action, if they have hard KPI about customer satisfaction, not at front line, at executive level, to check whether customer satisfaction improves or not, then they can easily spread this good vibe across the organization. If they talk about that, but they still allocate everything to pre-sales, trying to save money after sales, nobody will take them seriously. And that's the problem sometimes in many of the companies. Are there any execution methodologies apart of Agile and Kanban? Digital transformation execution has huge challenges in actual. Yeah, I would say that needs a lot of discussion and again that brings us to methodology specific. I would say the ones that you mentioned are certainly relevant. Several, of course, every consultancy might have its own methodology, right? But if we talk about universal methodologies, um, they are well known, I think, most of them. Several frameworks have been developed about digital transformation. Can we say where they are working practically? From your own experience, do you have a framework that you can recommend? I would say there are many frameworks, but they are not critical to succeed or not. It is all about people. If you have the right people on board, that they can navigate the challenges and they can decide where they will put more attention and how to tackle the different obstacles, then you can succeed. It's not so much the frameworks and different templates that can make us successful. It's interesting that many things have not changed. Culture still eats strategy for breakfast. What is the most important factor that is different in the digital era? The most important factor is that today we have more competition and more demanding consumers than ever before. So it was, you're right, it's relevant since ever. So those are the basics of business. We didn't have to wait for the digital era to discover that. However, today, consumers become more demanding and more powerful. Competition spoils consumers, so unless you don't do it, you will fail. And there is a continuous change all the time. So it is more important today than ever before to change culture and have the right culture. Some companies like Valve, the gaming company, and Core Associates have a very flat and unorganized organization and an open, free culture. What are your recommendations for a regular company that wants to move in this direction? Unfortunately, there is no, let's say, no solution that fits everybody. Different organizations need, unfortunately or fortunately, they need a different setup. That's what we see. It's not about industry, it is about the organization. So having a flat, unorganized somehow organization is not necessarily good practice. And sometimes the big problem we have is we can easily also mix cause and result. So you might see companies that they are successful for different reasons, and we might interpret it that they are successful maybe because of their organization. It can be relevant or it can be irrelevant. So I would say I cannot recommend any solution for all the companies in that case. Actually, the challenge, of course, is whether officially we have a pyramid or we have a flat organization. The reality is that people work like a flat organization. And it's a completely different way of working today compared to maybe 15 or 20 years ago. Many organizations suffer from internal politics and therefore new initiatives are challenging. Any suggestion on the best approach? Leadership. If you don't have the right leader, I don't think you can manage that. Apart from Amazon, I haven't seen so many examples that have gone through really big changes. Real digital transformation from selling books to cloud services. Why so? And how did Amazon overcome all those challenges to succeed in transforming and the way they did it? I can give an easy answer again, leadership. And Amazon has the founder alive. I don't know how Amazon will be in 20 years in case the founder of Amazon is not there anymore. And this is where you can check whether companies can be sustainable or not. What is the first steps to take in digital journeys? How to map the current situation? Every time we start with the customer, how customers or segments of customers, different personas, they think and they feel, what is their journey? This is how we map digital journeys. So you need strong empathy, you need data, and you need optimization. So whatever you build, you have to keep optimizing it and learning and adapting it every day. Can an external consultant take the CTO role in the company to lead the digital transformation? Yes, that's, I think that happens very often. In my company, it happens very often where we provide talents for interim roles. This is sometimes a good solution. You don't have the right people available internally. Do you think that digital transformation journey is a very top-down approach, should come more often than not from a passionate body, CEO, MD, chairman, that makes otherwise it might get fizzled out to the next level politics and mid-level personal agenda? Yes, it should be top-down. And what I was trying also to explain is, even if it is top-down, still you might face a lot of challenges. But if it's not top-down, I would say you will not achieve anything. How do you keep level of engagement as a vendor for enabling digital transformation for clients? How you can keep the level of engagement for enabling digital transformation for a client? Having this experience that I said earlier, understanding the different challenges, you find how much the client is ready to listen and understand the challenges, and maybe to listen to the advisor what needs to be done and how much closed it is. And then you decide also whether you take the project or not, because nobody wants to get affiliated with predicted failures from the very beginning. Any examples of successful digital transformation in recent history? I cannot talk about that for many different reasons. First of all, many of the digital transformations might have different kinds of scopes, and perspectives sometimes also differ. I have a personal opinion, but I'm afraid I cannot share companies' names. What I can see, however, is that every time that an executive changes in a company, the one that does the transformation feels proud about what they did, and the next one sometimes blames the previous one about destroying the company. You can see even well-admired companies doing that, and that's not good because it makes us all confused about it. Where is the success and where is the failure? I'm afraid I can see also some messages here that maybe I run completely out of time. May I ask the program support team to keep the rest of the questions so that I can probably reply by this weekend with mail to each of you. Thank you very much for joining. I hope it was useful, and let's stay in touch and enjoy the rest of the course about platform strategies. Have a nice morning or evening or afternoon. Bye-bye.